down in Syracuse on Thursday. Stayed overnight there, came back Friday.
Good. Yeah. Too long of a hike after Thanksgiving meal drive.
Oh, yeah.
Back. Oh, my God.
Hello.
Okay. What are you guys doing? I brought some cookies just in case somebody wanted to.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, thank you. What a pretty box.
Price shopper special. But the cookies look good inside, so. It just went out.
Oh.
You want it all?
Okay.
No, it went out.
It went out by itself.
Okay, we're live.
We thought we were possessed.
We're live.
Thank you. All right, so it's all good up there?
You'll start to hear about this. I think it'll probably get talked about in the next week or two. What's that? So, the village of Alex Bay got ready to put new docks and do a new deal out front. They're doing all kinds of stuff, right? So they're doing a new Upper James Street dock. And they decided, and I was at the construction meeting, and I told them they were nuts. They decided to put permanent dock all the way to the pavilion.
I see them working up there.
Then go into floaters for that last, I don't know how far, 150 feet.
So going around that point you're talking about?
No.
Permanent.
Not all
Talking about the
that far.
what's called the Upper James
Oh, the
Street
upper.
Town Dock, which really is a no.
Yeah.
It's called Town Dock back in your day, wasn't
Yes,
it?
it was.
Yeah, so,
And it also got flooded, and then they had to build on top of it because it goes up and down so much, the river, that they had to put a pavilion, and we literally had to scrunch underneath the pavilion to try to walk through, and then,
yeah.
because it was that high underneath the pavilion.
So all this ready money, everybody who uses the ready money who builds anything has to build it to a top height of 249 feet above sea level.
Right.
Which is current water level right now, 81 inches to the top of the dock.
You're gonna need gasoline to get up on there.
Oh my God. Or as my granddaughter would say, oh my God.
So.
So Ron Thompson and Bush right beside her, a whole bunch of other people, a whole bunch of business people figured this all out, and they went down there and they shot transit levels and they shot stuff to ensure that they were thinking correct.
Yeah.
With trying to create the 249. And put some boards, and there's a bench down there, and they built the boards up above the bench to show the level.
How else would it be? I mean, you have to have stairs going up it, you have to have a ramp for handicapped people.
So they're gonna try to change it. I remember at the meeting I was at, the issue was money, because it was gonna be more expensive to do it the other way. And you said how they built it up. I remember when they built the gangplanks down each side.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So before that, and this is before me, the existing dock for the first 200, 300, 400 feet, it's got all concrete. All concrete on top of that.
That makes sense.
Oh, it's accessible.
Yeah.
Hi, Al.
Yeah.
Hi, Al. How are you?
How are you?
Would you remember that back then there was this, it was kind of just like I'd say a pavilion, but it was very small, and it had a roof on it, and you couldn't get underneath it because the water was so high. And then they built docks, and you had to try to get underneath it to walk. You couldn't get past it, really, unless you stretched over. But that's, our water levels are pretty erratic to be getting a straight 280, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I'm going, do you have anything for me? I just read those minutes a little while ago, and I met Paul for the Long Beach answering. The reason is because he communicates with, do you know anything about me going to a short-term rental
Meeting? Yep.
Although it'll be late to come.
And that's kind of where we are.
Oh.
So,
Well, I left a phone message for him. He never called me back, so
he had told me.
Okay.
He talked to me after.
I figured he'd have to talk to you
He got
guys.
that message, and he asked me about it, and do I know anything about it? And I said, no, I either forgot, or I don't know about it, or who knows what, you know. So, I'll talk to him.
Well, the questions came up about the, if if we were gonna get involved in doing actual property inspections like septic tanks, how involved is that and what part would they play, or would we go to the county? It was questions like that we don't wanna throw something on them that
Yeah.
they're not equipped or financed to handle.
You might be familiar with that. Now, I remember back when Stanley used to do that. Because I remember the story, shovel here and a shovel there and a hole, and some people got more shovels, or what, you know. And then did it go to the county?
Yeah,
Yeah,
after
yeah.
Stanley took over, the town said, we don't wanna do this anymore.
Yeah.
It was not the zoning, it was the building and codes.
Yes.
You know, the inspections.
Yeah.
Because the town kind of did their own thing.
Yeah.
You know, it was very flexible.
Yeah.
Right? So they turned over to the county. The problem with the county is, what I was saying before, is they just adopted state stuff.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
So they come in and it was stupid. They made us put in cast iron underground, under building. You can't get to it. 3-inch copper vents, you know, and you couldn't get out of it. You know, so then they kind of morphed, and now we have what we have now, which is more reasonable.
See, I've had some people talk to me about that we should take over the code enforcement, you know, the county, and I
But did you say county? Take it over
from the county.
from the county?
Take it back from the county.
And I know that Clayton does it, and I've been to their office up there, and they got 4 people working in the office, just that are doing just that.
You know, my experience, my personal experience,
And it gets,
with Jason, is that they're thorough, they're reasonable, and now engineers are involved more. And once it's stamped, you know, I called him, I had this little addition, didn't need the engineer for, but I was using, instead of rebar, using Helix microbars. He said, send me the engineering cut sheets from the factory, which I did. We were good to go, because the engineer recommended it. But easy to work with, health department's easy to work with, it's clear, it's simple, you know, they're not very flexible, and they don't need to be.
no.
So,
Okay.
Anyway, it was questions like that. No, I don't think so.
No, I think we're good.
Okay, anything, feel free to give me a call, okay?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Have a good night.
Night, Brad.
Yep.
Mary, you brought cookies
Oh, well.
for everybody.
So they don't need.
I know,
Oh, my gosh.
after our
Thank you.
very fattening holiday weekend.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're here for a while and get to be like, I'd like to pick up a little
Yeah.
cookie here.
Something's wrong.
How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. It was quiet, and my daughter was always, you know, the nucleus. Now it's kind of morphing, so the daughter took over and did some. And
Oh,
then
okay.
we did this kind of a second one where everybody came in from out of town to do their own thing. Nice and quiet. How about yours?
Busy. I was
Busy.
telling Maria, we actually did 2 Thanksgivings because Wednesday night we had the kids and the grandkids over, and Thursday night we went down to my brother-in-law's in Syracuse
Oh.
and spent the night there, so it was very busy, but we got to see, well, one brother-in-law is in Florida, so we wouldn't have seen him anyway, and then there's another brother-in-law in Syracuse that we didn't see, but other than that, we saw everybody.
Yeah. They were kind of all spread out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, it used to be when my in-laws were still living, they were the nucleus, and so it didn't matter where everybody was living, everybody came up here and got together. Now that they're gone, and everybody has their own family, they're all kind of doing their own thing, and
Yeah.
this was the first Thanksgiving where my one brother-in-law had passed away.
Yeah.
So we kind of felt
I
the
just-
need for,
Yeah.
you know, brotherly love, so to
Yeah,
speak.
absolutely, yeah.
Table before us.
Yeah, we, it's different as you get older, and it kind of morphs around,
Mhm.
takes little adjustments.
Well, it does, and, you know, it's transitioning to like the next generation is, you know, they're now getting their own homes and their own little kids, and, so
Yeah.
we're starting to see the next generation getting established.
Yeah, very different.
Yeah, but different in a good way.
Oh, yeah. Not bad, it's just different.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Alright, I'm not sure who else, I know Court said he was not coming.
Correct.
I didn't hear anything from Sky.
No. I did talk to, was it the other, no, it was Shelley. And she said she still wants to come to the meetings. I think she said she caught him online.
Okay.
So, and I thought she said she was gonna come tonight.
Okay.
And I gave her the dates. But I have not heard personally from her. I texted her.
To make sure, I don't know if everybody had a chance to read through Jerry's, minutes, which so far, thank you, Jerry, very good recap of everything. I do wanna make sure we have in here somewhere, we had talked about in the application process that the homeowner would need to provide a link to their, or provide links to where they're advertising, such as Airbnb, VRBO, or wherever they're advertising. I didn't see that anywhere, if you did have that somewhere.
You are correct. Okay. So, didn't we refer to an application process when you were discussing that? Wasn't there another town's application process that you were
I don't know if I
discussing?
printed it out. Court had emailed,
Is that what it was? Is
Court
that the
had
town?
emailed the
Lime.
Town of Lime application. See, that's what it did before, the lights just go out by themselves.
We need to
Nobody's
move on.
moving.
Yeah, we are moving, apparently it doesn't matter. Okay, well, maybe that's, yeah, I
So,
don't
I don't have a printout of that, but I think that was the only
okay,
application that.
Sorry.
okay, so, under application,
You know, we want links, which goes along with the floor plan, you know, the rough sketch that we're going to require,
okay, include,
because that way that can be pulled together, the pictures from the links for the advertising and their floor plan, and we can, do a verification that way. No luck with the light?
No, I, other than leaving you all in the dark for a second. He swapped the, toggle on the left, and I did, and nothing happened.
Oh, okay. Maybe it takes two.
okay, so, under the application process, we're gonna include where they're advertising, and Airbnb, VRBO, et cetera,
Mm-hmm.
and what else?
Why are we
I think that was
requesting?
it.
Well,
Okay.
that be out of turn.
Well, so, under, where would we fit that in our, like, we started with definitions, but we only put one definition in, then we went to regulations. Would applications be in between those, would it be after regulations? Would it be,
Let's see what
how would we
have
put
here.
those in our, if this
Well,
was a draft ordinance?
Right, we're asking for, where do we see, number 6, that you have typed of an accurate, suitable floor plan for each level of the dwelling.
Hold on a minute, what was 5? 'Cause I only got it up to the permit is required for each
Right,
rental
I'm
unit.
looking at, this is what you had typed up, actually,
Okay.
this looks like, this was, yeah, what you sent out this morning. So what you
Okay.
have in blue.
Okay, so that, I guess I wasn't sure that was gonna be included in our, okay.
I
The
think it's a good
application?
idea, because it's all part of the verification
Okay.
process.
And the reason, to answer your question, the reason we put that in there is because there's gonna be multiple times that people are putting in an application that nobody's gonna be they won't have an opportunity to go in there in a timely fashion and look at what the actual building looks like, how many rooms there actually are, the fire and safety codes, are they actually in place, blah, blah, blah. So with their application, if we can get on Airbnb, VRBO, or whatever they're using for advertising, a lot of times they have pictures of their unit. And then somebody sitting here in an office, instead of going out into the field, can take a look at it and watch and see what they've got there, that they're advertising for. That was the
So-
reason we decided to do that.
So are you saying number 6 in this would be number 5 in our draft? In other words,
You'll have to, so I've got,
Number
we've
6,
got,
number
right,
6
number
here.
6 here, okay, it's the same as I've got on that page, number 6
Okay.
here.
So, but this is my draft. So I have a separate draft, which
Okay.
is
Where-
all of part 1
Right.
down to here.
I think wherever you're going, wherever we're putting this information, it should be all part of, it should be part of providing going along with the suitable floor plan.
Yeah, under the application,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
No, I understand that, but what I'm trying to do as we go through this is to put it into a document that
Right.
will be our finished product,
Right,
okay? So, we got as far as number 4,
yep. One permit.
that we
Mhm.
changed. Remember, that's about the only thing we accomplished in our last meeting, was that 1 permit was required for each rental unit, blah, blah, blah. So what I'm asking is number 6 of what's in this document gonna be number 5 on our draft ordinance?
So, in what you have drafted so far, so our first part is definitions.
Correct,
Then we've got regulations.
correct. Is this a regulation, or is it part of an
I think this is part
application?
of the application
Yeah, I think so
process.
too, yeah.
Right,
So maybe we have another section
that's
on the
what I'm
draft
thinking, that
that
we,
needs to be the application process, which you can pick up where your blue lettering starts
correct. So
at
I'm gonna,
short-term rental permit application requirements.
right, so I'm gonna, so if you look at that then, because if we go back through that, what we talked about, do we go back to the first page, 97? As you see, you have short-term rental permit application requirements from the town of Canandaigua.
Mm-hmm.
And may be obtained, the permit should be submitted to the code enforcement
Mhm.
officer, blah, blah, blah. So, and then you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which
Right.
6 we just discussed. So how many of those are we
Is
going to?
part of the application process?
Correct. So 5, if you look at 5, the name, address, telephone number,
Yeah,
email of
for
any
sure.
contact person.
I think 4, 5, 6, 7, for sure.
Okay. We don't know if the code enforcement officer is going to inspect the property.
Right.
At this point, right? unless there's an issue.
So, I mean, I think the way that you have this now, Jerry, almost all of this, I think, goes into the application process.
Okay,
The
all right.
permit fee, then the application itself.
And the town board is gonna determine the permit fee? Did we,
That's what we talked about.
Well, I think what
that's
we
to
should
them.
do is come up with a proposal to the town
That makes
board.
sense.
And, I mean, I think it needs to be enough, but not where it's going to put somebody over the top
Yeah.
if they have
I think
multiple
what-
units.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I might have been out of turn. I think what Brent was saying in the beginning was they were looking for a recommendation from this committee to the town board,
Right,
so that the town board could put together their ordinance.
right, yep,
But
and that's
right.
basically what I just said, is
Yeah.
that we'll come up with a proposal of what the fee is.
It has to be based on a cost, so you have to kind of determine what the cost
right,
is gonna be.
so do we have to hire more people to do this? I mean, does the code enforcement, I don't even know how many, they don't work that many hours a week now as it is.
Well, not on this job, but they've got full-time jobs too. I mean, the guys in the zoning board,
Right.
anyway.
Right,
And they don't
Norris-
want to do this.
No,
Right. so.
Not added on to what they're doing now.
Right.
I mean, Norris, I actually had a conversation with him the other day about this, so, I don't know if he's not gonna go out 11 o'clock at night, and it's probably fairly rare you ever have to go out.
Yeah.
You're looking at something wrong with the home, not a noise violation or a
Right.
parking
right,
violation or
right,
something
well,
like that.
I think there's,
So,
you know, multiple.
He may be amenable, but not at what he's getting paid now, because of
Right.
the hours he's spending,
Right.
but he might be amenable to that.
I thought, and you might have been here, Shuki said something about that he would be interested in doing some kind of code enforcement officer, like a job, like hiring someone to come in full time.
I don't
Do you
know.
feel like he sounded interested in that? No?
Well, I remember him being here, I don't remember him. I don't remember what,
Talking about-
he offered some explanations of the difference
Yeah,
between zoning and code enforcement,
Yeah,
and what can't
yeah.
be
That was our
done.
first meeting, I think,
Yeah,
when he
Yeah.
was there.
We were talking
But I don't
about
remember what
actually
these-
enforcement, because the zone enforcement officers, they're not really like writing out anything, you know, it's all gotta go through the town board.
Well, it could.
Well, I think that
John.
we're talking about a couple different aspects here.
Mhm,
One is
mhm.
your upfront approval process.
Yes.
You know, who's gonna be doing the inspections. Then you also
right.
have your enforcement, should there be
On the
issues
back end.
down the road,
Mhm,
exactly.
mhm.
So, you know,
You have the like a process, that you're gonna have somebody doing, if you're gonna have code enforcement, you have to have the inspections, and you don't
Right.
want people doing, lapping over, and it has a lot of cost, it has a lot of bureaucracy that people aren't gonna like,
Mhm.
you know.
Well, that's why the application process, the more detailed it is, and if someone can sit inside a building
Right.
and go through a checklist and say, if they got this, yeah, no, that room's not, there's no, you know, egress in that room, there's no window, it only has one entrance, so that can't be used as a bedroom,
Right.
type thing.
Right.
So you'll have to fix that, people, and then reapply, blah, blah, blah. So someone's gonna be sitting here
Right.
going through that.
Well, it may reapply or may just modify.
Or yeah.
Yeah.
Because the way we work now with all our permits, and we're heavily regulated, but it's fairly easy to do, as long as everything, I mean, we get the application every year. But we get an application, and everything's, that we had submitted before is on there,
right.
and if nothing's changed,
You just resubmit,
sign it,
sure.
and then the permit, if something's changed, we make a note of
Right.
it. But you can't really change anything without going to them in the interim.
Right.
So they already have that information. So you just make a call to find out what you need to do. So rather than have this constant reapplication and everything else,
Yeah.
it just makes it easy and lowers the cost tremendously. Because if you don't make any changes to the building and if nothing's different,
just gonna
why do you have to go
recertify
through all
everything
that?
all over
If you're,
again.
if you're
Right.
starting, if you're
Right.
first out of the box and you're starting a new STR, and you've got a room, like, I just happen to know of one particular issue where they turned a closet into a bunk bed style room, but there's only one entrance to the door.
Right,
No window.
And no window, there's no
No
way.
egress.
Right, so when you get that initially, you know, on the front desk here, and you're going through the process.
That's what would be picked up then, sure.
Then at that point, you say, hey, listen, Mr. Jones, you know, that's the fire safety code, you don't have an egress there, there's no fire, you know, ways for the firemen to get in there, yada, 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 you're gonna have to fix that.
So So zoning doesn't deal with that, that's a
Right.
codes issue.
Right.
Code and accounting deals with code issues, but if they get involved in that, that's a lot of work for
Yeah,
them,
yeah.
considering here.
But can you imagine what the liability would be if the town says, okay, rubber stamp it, and we know that, we already know.
Well, I'm not
that there's
advocating
zoning.
to not do something, I'm just
Yeah, we
saying
have to
that,
do something.
just trying, in my mind, I'm just trying to think about how to do this without,
Well, there is a way out there option, and that is there are companies that will do it for the town and charge a fee, obviously, and they will handle it. I don't know how exorbitant their fees are.
my experience with that is that it's also make work for them. You know, you get into a situation where they get into minutiae things and create a lot of.
Well, they might. I'm just saying that, I mean,
Safety
if we're,
issues are important.
if we're
I
forced.
think so.
Yeah, but they're pretty easy to deal with, it's what
Yeah.
protectors.
Yeah. But before we can approve this, this has to be rectified, Mr. Jones.
Where are the codes gonna come from for this?
Which codes?
Well, for like fire
Well-
safety codes, like say for example, that one room that's turned a closet into a bedroom.
Well,
So-
we talked about owners certifying that at the last meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, Stacy, but we did talk about the owners self-certifying
Yeah.
that they meet the fire codes, the health codes,
Right.
and some other,
At what
That-
level,
that
residential or
we're-
commercial? Like a hotel?
well,
Or a motel.
we're not talking about regulating
I think-
hotels.
Right.
No,
I
I'm
think
talking about,
Yeah.
you've got a commercial operation in a residential building,
Right.
so, and I'm just throwing this out there.
No, it's a good
I'm
question.
gonna throw, this is from my wife. Is it residential or is it commercial?
As far as
She
the
owns,
codes that
she
we-
owns it's an 8-unit apartment building, and it's different than residences in a lot of respects.
Yeah.
So,
That's a darn good question.
what are we doing with that? I don't know, I don't have the answer.
Right.
In my understanding in this, I think this is state, if there's over 4 units, then health department gets involved, you're probably involved in that?
She gets it every couple of years, you know, you get the codes guy comes through, does his inspection, so yep, you gotta fix this.
From the county or
It's
where?
town village, I believe.
Okay, so the
It's
town
town or
does.
village, I don't remember which.
Okay, so the town does it.
But the codes, saying where are the codes coming from, who's gonna,
Right.
if I have to fill out
Nobody
this
comes to my house
application,
to do that.
and if I have to certify something, I don't like the word certify, because that has legal connotation, but if I have to tell you that what I have meets
So.
codes that I've been given that I have to meet, then where are they gonna come from?
But perhaps
In
They
the
have to
one
all
for
be
the
drawn
town
up,
of Canada,
or adopted from someplace.
it has, so like
Well,
another
so they have to be
section,
specified, I guess.
right, another section of our ordinance should be property requirements. So in the town of Canada, they've got a section that says property requirements. One of the, number 1 is property must comply and meet all current New York State uniform building codes.
Pretty
So,
tough on most homes, I think.
I don't know, again, if it's a one family, residence, then I would think that falls under, residential versus there's gotta be, like you said, maybe if it's over 4 units in a building, then it becomes commercial.
Well, I think that's what I was, like, if you had cottages, for instance, 4 separate buildings, when you get over 4, I think that's when the.
No, the multi-dwelling.
Becomes commercial as opposed to a multi.
The multi-dwelling law in New York State specifies that if you have more than 3 units.
Was it 3 or more?
Okay.
3 or more
Three or
units.
more.
Is that in one building?
I was
Like
gonna
3
ask
apartments?
that.
or three-
Building.
3 separate buildings,
No, attached buildings.
Yeah.
attached, okay.
Attached.
They're all
Not cottages, like, or not.
Right, that's
Units
like 3
units
houses.
within a
3
building.
units.
Yes, that's right.
Right,
It's 3.
units within one structure, 3 or more. And the multi-dwelling law is very specific about, the codes. It's 100 pages long. If you read I've read part of it, because part of it, I hope, will someday apply here, that if we have a multi-dwelling unit, like we do on Tennis Island, that, short-term rentals should not be allowed. And according to the New York State multi-dwelling law, it's not allowed if the municipality accepts that.
Yeah.
In any city over 300,000 people, you may not do that. You cannot do that.
Only in
in
a,
the county, do we?
Huh?
We don't have that many in the
No,
county.
we don't. Exactly.
That's why they would
we
have
have
to
100
adopt it.
100
The
plus.
county would adopt it themselves outright,
Or adopt part of it.
or adopt part of it.
Nobody.
so these are like condos, and one person in the condo in the middle of the building would be renting it out, is what you're saying?
Correct.
And that's what you don't,
Correct.
that's different. than-
Or in our case, we have 4 units, and 2 of them, one is renting out on short-term rentals, which has been our bane of his existence, and another one wants to rent out.
I think that the onus upon the owner who wants to do the short-term rentals, and we don't have the manpower, so to speak, to actually go out and inspect themselves, it's really incumbent upon them to say, yes, I am telling you that our unit meets the following codes.
Yeah,
Because
I
they
was
want
gonna
to
question
do the
where the codes are gonna
application.
come from, and if it's 100 pages and you gotta go through all this thing, it could be difficult.
Well, I'm
so.
sure there's a fire code,
Yeah.
New York State,
But if you have a business and you want this to work and you want it to prevail, then you're going to make sure that you are within the codes of that particular county or the state. And that would be incumbent upon you to go and make sure that what you're doing is correct, because you're renting to people and the liability would be on you, and the town is approving, this whole thing. And if you want to do an application and have a business, then you've got to kind of step up and make sure that your business is within code. So the onus should be on the person making the application, because we can't send somebody
No,
out there.
I don't disagree with that. I'm
To
just
go
saying,
out-
I just didn't know where
Where did you find in
what are you gonna
town
refer
that
to? Where's the
can't-
code gonna come
You
from
have
here?
that?
Yeah, yep. Well,
So, in
I see
other words,
you
if I
were
wanna
able
put
to
an
print that
addition
out.
onto my
I
existing
did
home,
print it out, it's
the
very
addition has to
small, but
meet, so say it's a
great.
bedroom, it has to
Do they
meet
have
certain
a whole
specs, right,
nother
bedroom,
section
this
where
bathroom,
those
whatever.
specs of
But
property
if the,
requirements?
what's that?
and where would those specs be?
Well, they come from
You
the
know, I
county building.
can't find this.
So there,
Right.
that's one answer.
And
Right, but the rest
when
of the
we
home
tried
doesn't.
to
Right.
get
I don't
your
have to remodel
town
my
of,
entire home.
North
Right.
Alabama,
Uh-huh.
Say building
and
code
print it.
Yeah, you couldn't open up that one either?
Couldn't
Ever
Couldn't
changing,
open them up.
and
We have,
We're right in the middle of doing
Apple,
exactly
an Apple
that.
Oh,
laptop,
mhm.
so I don't know.
I don't know,
in the old
this
part, it's
was the town
irrelevant,
of,
and the
North
new part,
Elba,
it has to
pulled
meet
offline.
certain things.
Right, and I
Yeah.
have that, but you
But if it
gave
has
us
to,
this, I think.
Then it has to,
In that
You
part.
gave us
in that
this.
part.
I don't remember.
So,
Right, in that
I
part.
think whatever
Before you after
the
we're
reasonable
done.
Okay.
application of these codes has
Yeah,
got to
that'd be
be on
great.
the onus of the person
Okay.
wanting to start up this business and making sure that
Because
their
what I'd
business
like to
meets
do
the code.
Right,
is,
That's
so
on
we're
that.
going to, smoke detectors are easy.
do an application
Sure.
on
Uh-huh.
Certain things like that.
I just wanna write
Detectors,
And
Toilet isn't quite,
firemen
doesn't quite the right
Right,
Yeah.
offset.
one of those
Not a big
applies,
deal.
so I
Yeah.
can
You
put it
know,
all together.
well, you can shut down the whole business,
Yeah, I mean,
because
they
you're
get
trying
into
to,
a decent amount of
you're trying to
detail.
go back to existing places and now have them come in conformity. It's very difficult to
Okay.
do.
Well, again, you're trying to, for example, if there's a place they're charging $300 a night for a person to come in and rent their place. They're gonna have to do the homework to do the application to make sure that their property is within spec, period. We don't have the manpower, I don't think the town can afford the manpower to go out and check, so.
No, I'm not,
But I think
So this was
that
part of
whoever
the
is going to
town
be
of
the enforcing agency,
Canada, I
Right.
think,
which would be
Yeah.
the
which
town
must have come
Has
on
to
board.
come from
essentially,
here.
or whoever they
That's where
designate.
I
They've got to say, this is what you need
I
to
don't know
be,
where I got
not
this
just
from.
current building, you know, whatever
Somehow I
those
think
codes
Ford or
are.
somebody
I think
sent this.
you need to specify what they are, and then the onus can fall upon the business owner to make sure they comply with it.
And that's what they did in the Canada town, saying that you must
Yeah, that's what I
comply
thought.
with the, I'm
So
sorry,
that was,
there's-
this is what we discussed.
Candidate.
No worries.
Right.
Candidates.
I remember we discussed it, I
It's-
didn't
it's-
know that
it's
we were,
semi-anxious.
which parts we were gonna.
Okay, I'll go for it. You have to comply with the following laws, New York State, Jefferson, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it probably, I agree, it should be written in there what they should comply with and where to go find it, under article such
Yeah,
and
if
such.
they're gonna make them, we have to, but.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have to.
So the health department has a book that covers,
Right, you got
Everything.
DOH,
so they have, you know, for campsites, they have for an RV park.
Oh, sure.
Short-term rentals,
Sure.
mobile home parks, you know, different, you know, restaurants and different sizes and hotels and motels. And the laws, and there's a lot of them, but they're very clearly written and that, and, I don't think that they go into, is the law, they change, they update from time to time because they'll have problems. They don't go in and make everybody that's already existing change everything.
Yeah,
Now, some things they do, some things they would, for instance.
Fire,
Exactly, that's what I was gonna say.
Exactly.
Smoke detectors, fire alarms, stuff like that, absolutely, but if a door's not swinging,
Right.
yeah, the door's gotta swing, that's important too, in an emergency, that it swings
Right.
out and right away.
Right.
But some things are just, you know.
You know what, I don't know how picayune that the town would be, I mean, if it's within reasonable.
But then you get into things that are subjective, and it's very difficult, and then it weaponizes things too. I like this guy, I don't like that guy, it happens, I've seen it.
I'm sure it does. and
So,
it's not
you just
good
gotta
that
be,
it does.
my point is, it's gotta be clear. It's gotta be clear and I don't wanna say simple, but I mean, easy to understand and implement that, and it's gotta be.
It can't be ambiguous,
And
it's
it's-
gotta be
Right.
clear. And-
Yeah, and then,
gotta be enforceable.
yeah, I'm trying to think of the right words, but it's gotta be, there has to be some flexibility. You know, if something's 2 inches off and it really isn't a big deal, you know, I saw a place down in Ridgefield, Connecticut, where they had an elevator that was going in. Somebody made a mistake. There had to be a clearance in the shaft of the elevator, and it was 1 inch off.
And this is new construction.
This was an addition into an existing building,
Okay.
that's correct, all right? According to the engineers, that part of it, I mean, it's rather arbitrary, didn't hurt a thing, they had to tear the whole thing out and do it. You know, to me, I mean, it
The
costs them.
company should be paying on for that issue.
Well, I know, but I mean, I'm just saying that I've seen things like that happen over and over again, and a lot of times it's you know how it is, you know, it's,
I do know how it is, but I also understand that if as it was written and as you had just stated in the candidates, you will follow the following laws of New York State rules and codes, and that's about the best we can do.
Right.
Is to say, this is what you have to follow. It's incumbent upon you to follow that. If our zone enforcement, code enforcement, whatever enforcement officer, and it's glaringly evident to that person who does that type of work, then they have to be saying, you need to fix that in accordance with this particular code.
Well, why don't we move on
I was
to
just-
some of the things
yeah.
that we're gonna try to put into this, and then
Okay.
if we have an objection, then
Yeah.
we'll discuss
Because we
it.
can,
Okay.
right, we can always, you know, I'm sure things are gonna get tweaked,
Sure.
to make it enforceable and flexible, as we go along, so.
I just, my point, I didn't wanna see.
What was the name of the place that you referred to where this?
It was a church in Ridgefield, Connecticut.
No, but what was, you said it was something in New York, with parks and campgrounds.
Oh, that's what the health department has their,
Okay.
you know,
Okay.
their codes that you have to meet.
DOH, New York
Okay.
State Fire Prevention, New York State Building.
Yeah, they have offset between.
Okay.
Like the county, you can be, buildings will be side by side, but not with the DOH, they require a 10-foot offset between them, that's their
I mean,
rules.
if it's already written, we're just gonna say, you've gotta abide by the laws that are already currently enforced, and tell us that you're doing that, show us that you're doing that, and then we can approve the application. If we see that there's a glaring, or whomever looks over this stuff, then you need to fix it before we can approve your application. It just seems reasonable to me.
And I think the more that we can get online in the way of pictures, diagrams, so that somebody, whomever is reviewing this, can sit behind the scenes, it'd be a lot easier that way. I know, for example, my husband and his brothers are purchasing or in the process of remodeling the convenience store and the liquor store over on Wellesley Island.
Yes, and we can't wait.
So neither can we. So at any rate, you know, the whole application process for the permits is all, nobody from the state, as we're applying for the liquor license, is going to come and inspect the property, but we had to supply pictures, diagrams, you know.
Floor plans.
Right,
Yeah,
floor
sure,
plans. We have to, once we have the convenience store stocked, before they give us our temporary permit, we have to send pictures of that stocked, that we're ready to go. So, you know, and that's just what you have to do.
you just follow
No one's
through.
gonna come out and physically inspect to make sure that we're on the up and up.
No
but it'll-
manpower to do so.
Right,
They're just
exactly.
And
so
there was a liquor store there previously. Yeah. All you're doing is taking over, sort of.
Sort of.
Okay.
All right, so we
right.
now are in the application requirements section, it seems.
Yes, so under that, you want me to include, starting with what we talked about from the town of Canadice, A through,
Yes,
Maybe
I think A
7.
through 7, correct.
Do you wanna just take a moment, does everybody have
Do
that
you have a
document?
spare copy of that by chance?
I can make copies real quick. Anybody else need one?
I've got a.
would it be, is mine better, is this bigger print than
It might
yours?
be, mine printed, yes, it is bigger than mine.
So, it starts on the bottom of that page. That's the email I
I'll take
sent.
a copy too, I forgot to print.
Was that, this is ours, or that's Town of Canada's?
I can't see that, I'm sorry, Sky.
This is Town of Canada's.
That's, yeah, the blueprint is the town of Canada's, which we are considering adopting and putting into ours, yes.
I wonder what their budget's like compared to Town of Alexandria.
I don't
Are you
know.
familiar with, Canada's?
I know where Canada's is, yeah.
But you're not
Not
familiar
with this,
the
no.
population or anything like that?
It's outside of Rochester and Toronto.
Oh, it kinda sounds like it's probably a suburb, yeah.
Well, not a suburb, it's on the top of, well, it's Canada's Lake, it's one of the Finger Lakes west of Seneca,
Okay,
west of,
Skinny Atlas, is it? No?
west of, it's like 2 west of Seneca, I believe.
hey
Okay.
Siri.
So is it on the
it's
lake
the
itself?
population of
Does it have
Canada's, New
lakefront?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
York. Doesn't recognize Canada's.
It's one of the little ones out here.
Okay, that's your original.
Okay.
Copy of that, and Sky, copy of that.
So if you look at the bottom of page 1, 97.4 is their application, begins their application requirements, and then it goes all the way through page 2. So basically, we're looking at page 2 for the most part. It just says, page 1 just says an application may be obtained from the town, and it shall be submitted to the code enforcement officer. I assume, for our purposes, that's where something is gonna go. We don't know what's gonna be in that office yet, but that's where,
Right, that'll have to be a question mark until we get more feedback from the town as to what the town's intentions are.
correct. So how about, so the fee,
Will leave
payment of a non-refundable permit fee to be
to
determined,
be determined.
okay, so that's, all right. So at this point, we're not coming up with one. Maybe at the end of this process, we'll come
Yeah,
up with a fee.
I agree, I think that's so.
The unknown,
The,
okay.
demographics of Canada's.
Yeah.
So it's not, they're estimating 1,677 population.
So then a statement authorizing the code
Yep.
enforcement officer to inspect the property to ensure
300 people,
compliance.
774 households.
But this is
So that's something that,
where the influx
I think
is coming
that,
from.
couldn't that
I don't know how
be
many.
Yeah.
I think
combined with the application, that if you have an application and you're signing and certifying the application, that part of the application can have a statement that by submitting this application, you
Correct.
are authorizing us to do, or the town, anybody, you know, pertaining to this process to do what they need to do
To
in order
review.
to approve your application. So I don't think that really needs to be a separate statement. I think that could be part of the application.
okay, on the application itself.
Yeah.
So that, okay. Well, we could say that, a statement authorizing a code enforcement officer to inspect the property to ensure compliance with all requirements and standards contained, doesn't mean he's gonna do it, or she. And then a second sentence to that would be, this statement would be incorporated into the application form, correct? What if I say
Put that
that?
in there, mm-hmm.
Okay.
You could put like as listed or as stated on the application.
Okay. Stated within the application.
There you go.
All right, and then number 3? An acknowledgement of present and ongoing compliance with the short-term rental standards as defined in this chapter, including but not limited to the demonstration of adequate off-road parking spaces. Well, that would be under the regulations that were, correct? Is that where,
I don't think you even need to get into the specifics of anything here. I think,
No,
you know, just comply with the standards as defined by the.
they're gonna be, right, they're gonna, wherever we list them,
Yeah.
they're gonna be there.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
doesn't
this,
have-
right, this doesn't, that really doesn't go here, I don't think. I mean, this is,
The off-road parking, that seems like that's
Okay.
somebody's
that's gonna be under the
bug.
property requirement.
Right. A list of each property owner and name of the manager or managing, so that would be on the application.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think 4 and 5 could be combined into one
I agree.
paragraph, that's like redundant,
Okay,
Yep, I agree.
yeah.
got it. Combined into one. And 6, are we changing
Mhm.
anything to that?
Well, the only thing we had said last week is we had talked about, saying like a rough sketch,
Correct.
where it does not need to be professionally
And it
prepared.
says that here.
Well, it says, you know, drawn to scale and certified, so, is rough sketch drawn to scale?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not.
I
Right.
think saying drawn to scale is a little daunting. Again, I know our drawing that we submitted, basically we took a computer, we did it on the computer, but we just drew and put measurements in. It wasn't to scale, but it was adequate enough for anybody to understand what the
The
floor
health
plan
department
is.
requires us to submit drawings, surrounding building, the infrastructures and everything. They want accurate measurements, but they don't require it to be to scale.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, then we
That would
don't
be
need
that would be
that
pretty difficult to
phrase.
do for most
Okay,
people.
we'll done drawn to scale,
All right, so I'll take that out.
yeah.
I should call that little one exception, that's when you're submitting, an engineer submitting a plan for something,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
different.
Yeah, that is
you know.
different,
But if
yeah.
we're putting an addition, a deck, you're doing something like
Right,
that, that's
these
not
aren't
required.
engineers, they're just business people trying to.
Well, they don't require it for that stuff,
Right,
they just wanna
right.
know what the offsets are,
Yeah.
make sure you're not setting something over a septic field or something,
Sure.
that the
Like,
offsets.
like parking areas off.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Where you're parking on a septic system.
Should we, speaking of that, should we include, because this does say location of buildings and required parking, should we also include location of well and septic?
You know what? I'm not disagreeing with that, and I think that's a good idea because in where we are, and again, it's a private community, all of the septics and all the wells and all the holding tanks are in the middle of
They'll
this.
go together.
Yeah, it's all, and then because the driveways are just so long, because they're really just small little townhouses, all their friends, family, and neighbors, and it's only one lane road. You can't, there's not a 2-lane road. They all park on septic tanks and the wells, and, you know, there have been some problems.
You have wells?
No, we don't have wells.
Next to your septic?
No.
No, we have septic,
no.
where are,
It's our-
we have, I'm sorry, the water, we have a water system.
Water supply.
But the septics are out there with their holding tanks. I'm thinking holding tanks and wells, I'm sorry. Holding tanks and the septic itself is all inside that circle, and people
Yeah.
park on it.
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, health department never worried about somebody parking over, as long as it's open and that, you couldn't build on it, things like that.
Didn't John have a truck go through a septic?
Yeah, that'd be designed to hold the weight. So we
Yeah.
up in Vermont.
We have tanks and stuff in a large parking lot, but
Not
they're
as
designed to
septic,
hold
it's
that. But
leach
they,
field.
Leach field.
They drive all over and park
Okay,
over and
all right.
that was the
I
health
think
department design, so.
We should put that in location of septic well and leach fields.
Yeah, yeah, I think you shouldn't be parking on those things, I don't think.
Just have them include a survey map.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What do they call that though, site plan,
Site plan.
is what they
Correct.
call it
Not a
in
survey.
zoning.
Survey would be quite expensive.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you got it, we did our site plan on a blow-up of a survey map.
Right,
But,
so you could do that on the blow up the tax.
yeah, I don't think you really wanna,
Site plan, I don't know, a survey would be expensive.
Yeah, site plan sounds like a reasonable term.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could do
well,
that
that's what you're
yourself.
talking about, drawing it yourself, that's the
Mhm.
site
Right.
plan.
Okay,
Right, that's all the towns are
That's a good
required,
term.
when that comes to work.
Yeah,
As long as the dimensions are correct, that's the key.
yep, 15 on each side, 20 on the back.
With
55
this
not
drawing, should
historical
we
water.
include,
How do I
smoke
know that?
detectors and carbon monoxide detectors? It would be
Well,
redundant, but it might be important just because of fire hazards. I mean, it's redundant because it's in the codes to have working CO detectors and smoke detectors, so it's kinda in the code. Is it redundant to add it again? Is it reasonable to just?
Probably let
Sure.
the code people design the code that needs to be, that's important for this. There are probably things that are absolutely essential, other things that are desirable, and if you make a change, then you gotta change, bring everything up to code, you know, I mean,
Well, I'm
it's
just
pretty
trying
hard.
to think of, ease of, again, somebody who's not physically going to inspect the property. To me, the more information that you can have on this,
But you can have an addendum to the code that they
plan.
need to do, but to put it in the document would be pretty difficult.
you mean to mark it like on the floor plan?
Well, if I come up here to get for a permit for something, I can get the zoning and it lists everything else that I need to do, but it's not part of it, it's not in the application itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then that's something that's a little more fluid, so the changes need to be made. If you put it in the ordinance, you're stuck.
So where do we have them certified that they are in compliance, say, with the fire
Right.
code?
No, maybe I misunderstood, you were gonna specify certain things in here?
No, what I'm talking about is on the floor plan that we're having them do, where we are telling them how, basically, what to put in the floor plan.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. Okay.
I'm saying to have them mark on the floor plan
Yeah.
where they have the CO2 detectors
Right.
and their smoke
Okay,
detectors.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood, yeah.
Okay. So that would have to be on each floor, right?
Well,
Or just okay, so F. Smoke detector and,
have them mark where the smoke detectors
And
are.
fire alarms
and
are.
the fire alarms and the CO2 detectors are.
Or like the code says, you need them, one in each bedroom or one
Right.
in the hall,
In the hall.
contiguous to the bedrooms or something like that, one in the attic, one in the basement, it's pretty clear. Then you get into electrical, that's all arc fault stuff, right?
smoke detector,
I just
CO
redid all
detector
mine.
location.
They're expensive,
Mm-hmm.
but they're nice, they're expensive. If you can get them,
Okay.
it's hard to get stuff done.
Okay.
Well, completed that. So at some point, we're gonna have to look at all this and maybe draw up a application form, I think, based on.
The court had the one there that was kind of straightforward and clear.
Yeah, that was from the one.
It didn't
from
come
the
through
line.
online, I meant to look it up and I didn't.
Well, that's why I'm having problems getting people that send stuff over the email. We can't open them, we're,
Everything should be converted to PDF before it's sent, maybe.
Yes,
Yeah, and that's pretty,
Yes.
yeah.
absolutely. Droid, Apple, Word,
Yeah.
Pages, yeah, they're all not, they don't play nice.
No, different email programs, clients will strip things out
Yes,
on its own.
yeah, yes.
and how about C, where it says owners wishing to apply for a variance relating to sleeping capacity, parking, or other standards must petition to the zoning board of appeals.
What number is that,
that
Jerry? Where are you on C?
The
Oh, okay,
last, the
okay,
last
got it,
part of that
got it.
application.
Only the proper variance or-
How does that fit into what we're talking about here? I mean, obviously, an appeal process has to go somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So is it proper to go to the zoning board? Is it proper to go to code enforcement? Is it proper to go to the planning board?
I don't know that we can answer that question without knowing what the town, again,
Wants
it
to
kind of
do.
boils it down to what the town is
We've
gonna
got,
do as
we've got
far
pros and cons to each.
Right,
If you go to the zoning board of appeals, you're talking a lot of time, a lot of work, you know, letters going on, you know, to
Right,
park
that could
one
take
extra
months,
car, I mean,
right?
it could be, yeah. If you go to an
So-
individual, whoever they might be, then it's very
Right.
subjective. Not that it is on the other, but it's a little more subjective, so it's easier
So
to.
can you apply for a variance to the code enforcement office?
You know, depends
I don't know,
on
cause then
what
you
you're
come back
seeking.
down to one person,
right.
like you was just
Yeah.
saying. I don't have, I don't have an answer for you.
Okay, all right, well,
Can we just, until we find out where an appeal would go, can we just leave that as
all right,
a line to say?
appeal is at the end.
Board of
TBD.
So I'm taking it out.
Board of Appeals, and then they can determine where they wanna send it.
Yeah, that might be a
Fill in
better
the
way to go.
blank.
So this is the application from the town of Lyme.
Can you read it, Al?
That's a quickie.
So we don't, huh?
It's name and address
Yeah,
of the owner,
Oh, that's the
property
application.
information, managing agent information, and a declaration. I certify under penalty of perjury that what? All your statements are correct. I don't see anything out, there's nothing.
It just kinda sounds like an affirmation at the end of the application.
Correct.
That's all that is.
Yeah, it's nothing
And-
regarding
yeah.
structure, where it, I mean, what you're gonna do with
They
it.
might,
Well, I mean,
they may not have it, they just want you to pay the fine and register with them and,
Well,
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's really,
I've had a
everybody will
real,
pay the app.
if I understand, it's not firsthand, but I think it's accurate. I've had a lot of really aggressive pushback on what they were trying to do. I mean, it was big time. And what I was told by a couple people that were there is that they basically ignore it. They just get too much flack, so they have it, they ignore it. So, and that's a bad situation too.
so, just kind of taking a look back to.
So not being too bureaucratic.
The only thing that, the way my mind works regarding the legal liability of issues and the responsibility of, is that if Mr. Jones wants to come in and start a new STR, and our application is not detailed enough, and they just like, yeah, it's great,
Right.
and then someone dies in a fire, or yada yada, and the town
Right.
board has approved it, but we didn't really pay attention, because
Right.
it was,
That's right.
you know, the liability issues is that we have to protect the town.
Well, there's, I think it's New York City, in the news the other day, Airbnb is being sued for a fire that occurred, where a young lady stayed at a, short-term rental, and she died in a fire. And, the parents are suing Airbnb. I don't know that they're going after New York City, as far as I know they're not. And they're going after the owner of the property, obviously. But they're also including Airbnb, who may or may not approve these sort of things, so.
Yeah.
The limit-
there might be
They're
some-
going after the money.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
Oh, absolutely,
It's hard to-
absolutely,
Have the deepest
but
pockets.
it is a liability concern.
Sure.
Well, I don't know how much the town would be liable in that regard, but,
Well, if you approve an
any of these things.
application, that there certainly would be named in a lawsuit, how much they'd actually get from it, or what their
right, it could be.
still be named
You
in the
certainly
lawsuit.
could.
Well, it's a totally different thing too, because
Right.
Airbnb is gonna say, we're just the app developer, we're just
We're
hooking up-
advertising.
We're just advertising
Exactly.
something. We have, I don't even know
Right.
where it is.
Right, exactly.
So it's like Uber. We're just an
Exactly.
app developer.
Right, so therefore, if somebody's injured, dies, what happens? Who approved this thing to begin
Right.
with, within the town, the city code.
Well,
Hard thing to
interesting.
answer.
I guess we'll stay tuned and see.
Yeah.
So in the town of North Elba, going back to that town,
Yep.
here's their checklist for STR permit application. An affidavit, I don't have this printed out, but I can pull it up.
Okay.
The site plan, information and signature page for all members with ownership interest, 24/7 emergency contact information, and on this it says click here, so where it's clickable, obviously it's pulling up additional, documents. The type of STR, the parcel identification number, which is the tax map number, map and description of parking plan, proof of chimney clean out.
Okay.
Yeah, as we're talking about having a fire, I know like in my house, we've got if we were to rent it out, we have a wood burning stove.
Yeah.
Same
Yeah.
thing, our neighbors have a wood burning, fireplace.
Sure.
How
That would be
often
a
have
code,
we
that would be a
chimney?
code issue again, that has to deal with that.
Yeah.
So, but this is saying proof of chimney clean out, septic inspection report, and a copy of your deed.
Copy of your deed,
Mm-hmm.
to see who the true owners of that property are,
Right.
versus subletting, blah, blah,
Right.
blah.
Well, D won't tell you that.
Well, we went into that,
No, a deed wouldn't tell you that, just
Yeah.
the owners.
And then the
Right.
town has to have that already for taxes.
Right,
So, I don't know.
right.
we discussed the septic inspection. Ad nauseam.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. We don't need to repeat that.
I didn't say a word.
But all your points were made, and we accept them.
I think the lawsuit thing is hard to worry about. I know that
I'm not,
two doors down, some
sue
kid fell off a
anybody for
dock and broke his
anything, so-
leg, and he was on an area that's here. Two properties down, we end up getting a notice of claim and so on and so forth, and, it's like the insurance company attorney says, it's like, the
As
fishing.
long as the town is saying that we are requiring them to meet the current codes as they are on the books, I think the town will be covered, and we really do have to keep in mind to protect the town.
And the insurance. The insurance
Right.
does an inspection too, and they're pretty tough because they have the liability on that. And I know for myself that, very, very detailed, what I had to do.
The insurance,
But once for example, we purchased our camp a couple years ago. And the, insurance sent out, an inspector, and one of the things that we had to do was we had to, put underneath the wood burning stove,
Right.
we had to put a longer flame-proof,
yeah.
pad that it
Right.
sits on.
That's different though for homeowner than commercial use.
Right.
So my
true.
properties I have down on Route 12, are personal dwellings, they go through, but when it rolls to commercial, if it rolled to commercial for rentals,
Right.
then it's a whole new ballgame.
Right.
I mean, we're talking from a couple thousand to 4,000, and they go through it with a fine tooth comb, because they're
But I
holding
have rentals
liability,
too.
and they're,
And I haven't had the
they
insurance.
never asked to do that?
Nope. Nope, not for either of our rentals.
We always have.
Never had them come out. I mean, we did at the beginning, when we first purchased the
Are you talking
property.
about, well,
Nope, these
you're
are
talking about year-round rentals or short-term rentals?
year-round rentals.
Yeah, again,
and that's kind of a different ball.
it is a little bit different, because it's not considered commercial.
Right. Exactly.
Airbnb would be considered commercial use,
And
and they
that's-
look at that differently.
Exactly what I'm Googling right now.
Yeah. My point is that, you have a layer of protection there, the town does to a large degree. Is it properly insured? That's something that should be addressed. Make sure they have the right type of insurance.
Yeah, talk to T.I. Park about that.
Is that something that we should include in the application process, is a copy of their, declarations page?
I don't know, if that's our business, really.
Right.
That's the HOA's. Well, that's the operator's concern, not ours.
Right.
If it burns down, what's the town getting out of the insurance? Nothing.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, so is there anything else in the application process that I should include?
So we just will
Draft.
have to come up with, an application form,
Right.
which I think can include most of the things that are on this checklist from North Elba.
If you could kindly somehow figure out, well, could I go on to the North Elba,
That's the-
website and make an application? And as I go through the application,
Well, I'm looking up right now.
Those are probably
Steal
just
their
drop
ideas.
down fields over
Yeah.
there where you can type in,
Right.
and then print the thing or send to them. You can do that with a PDF file easily.
Yeah, I've done that in the past with
Right.
surveying.
maybe I can do that. Okay.
Sure, you take the notes out of the computer part. I'll do
All
that,
right.
okay?
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, so we gotta figure out an
All right.
application form.
Mm-hmm. See if it has anything.
So this is interesting, just bear with me for a second. We were talking about, you had brought up, is it commercial or is it residential? And it says, there's an exception under the transient rule delineation in section 16882 of a vacation rental is leased for 30 days or less at a time to visiting tenants. It should be classified as non-residential real estate. Under these special circumstances, the IRS now recognizes short-term vacation rentals as commercial real estate, which carries a 39-year depreciation. In other words, they're not homes, rather they're classified in a similar fashion to hotels.
And what does that on look like?
And that's the IRS, isn't it?
That's
Yeah,
the IRS?
yeah, the IRS accounting web, it's,
So that must be effective, that's pretty
And that's
recently
the-
then.
39-year depreciation.
that's what it says.
That was 29, I think.
Yeah, I'm familiar with 30 years.
I will forward this to you. Just because when we were talking about residential, commercial, blah, blah, blah,
Mhm.
and they're saying, well, you know, you depreciate it if it's an investment, then you're not taking, Jerry, help me out here, you're not, if it's your residence and you're renting it out short-term, all right, and you're not taking depreciation or your cost.
Yes, and I don't understand the concept of that.
Okay.
And the,
Oh, okay.
no, I don't understand how they differentiate between saying that it's a short-term rental for investment purposes only, and it's not a business. That was the argument you're trying to discuss, but
Okay.
I don't see it. A business is a business. So, okay, so, under regulation, on our original draft document, we started talking about the permit required,
Mm-hmm.
and so would the application process go right under that, because it kind of follows?
I think that makes sense.
You're talking about a permit.
Mm-hmm.
So then, next becomes application process.
Yep. And then I think property requirements after that.
Yep. Yes. So I'm gonna say, see what we discussed earlier. Page 2. And then property requirements.
What's your thought process as far as somebody sends this in? Is this gonna be like a building permit application where it's we do them all, or maybe that's just a variance, we do them all on the first Monday of every month? Or is this gonna be, it comes in, and as soon as that, whoever's responsible gets to it, reviews it, and says, you need to change this or approve, so that you can rent it, or is that up to the town?
We had talked, well, it will be up to the town, but we had talked about trying to have provisions for, let's say, some sort of temporary approval process, because at the beginning, let's just say for next summer, right? People are already renting for next summer, now, if they're not already booked. So we didn't want to say to anybody, because you don't have your permit yet, you can't rent. So we have to have some sort of means for allowing people to continue, in the interim, until we
Or
actually.
maybe you do that for the first year or something.
Something of that nature.
Right, there has to be a grace period
Right.
to start this
Right.
thing off. That's true,
Yeah,
right.
so grace period and a deadline, so let's say possibly by the end of 2023, where you're then going into the season of 2024.
Right, that makes sense, it's reasonable. Stacy, I'm sending this commercial versus residential regarding the taxing to you, so that
Okay.
you can review it, and if you think that's appropriate, would you forward it to
Yep.
everybody? Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we're moving on to property requirements, and where are we drawing our,
So again, just using the two towns that we've been referring back to, Lake Placid and Canadice, and Lake Placid specifically spells out the maximum occupancy for each short-term rental shall be the most restrictive of the following.
Okay, so which-
Calculated as 2 times the number of bedrooms.
so where are we now? What page is that on Town of North Elba? Is
Town
it
of North Elba is on page 7.
7? Because
I got the slippery slope to get into.
okay, because there's smoke detectors and exterior doors and electrical systems and fireplaces and everything else is on page 4.
Yeah. I saw that,
And parking spaces.
so I think what they're saying on page 4 is this is part of their affidavit.
That's
that
part of their
that you're-
application then.
As that's
Okay.
that is part of the application
Got
process.
it.
You are
Right.
certifying
Requirements.
all
Got it.
these things are, in compliance.
Yep.
All right.
So I think that needs to be,
All right, so
on the
we're gonna-
affidavit.
Okay.
And then as far as property requirements,
How about page 6?
Yep.
Page 6, number 6. Property must have sufficient off-street parking spaces.
Absolutely.
So do we start there and go through some of these and see what applies or what you think applies?
So they have that under the application requirement.
Okay, interesting.
Right? Yeah, along with the house number being visible, provisions for weekly garbage removal.
Right.
I don't see that that's part of the application requirements. I mean, to me, that's part of the property
Right.
requirement.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yes, I agree too.
And at some point, maybe on the application, they have to affirm that,
That these things are being
happening.
addressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
70 square feet is better, that's one tiny bedroom.
Yeah, it is.
It's really small.
Well, it shall be at least. Closet, so it can't
Make
be
sure
a
you have a
closet.
window.
Right. You got him on that one.
Gotta have a window.
No campers.
Well, yeah, let's start then with number 6, and I think kind of go
Now-
right down that whole section.
Six on page 6, okay.
Yep.
now on this, in addition to that, under 11.4 on page 12, the required off-street parking actually is better defined.
Okay.
So,
So,
We'll steal that definition from page 12 and then under the property.
yeah, I think so.
can it not be combined and make it
Sure.
a little more concise?
Yep,
I don't see any need to have a separate
right, I agree.
paragraph
So why
for
don't we say C,
off-street
page-
parking.
12,
Page 12.
section 11.4.
And then in Town of Canada, under their standard, there shall be one working smoke detector in each sleeping room and one
Right.
additional smoke detector on each floor. Carbon monoxide detectors shall be installed as required by the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code. Evacuation procedures must be posted in each sleeping room to be followed in the event of a fire or smoke condition or upon activation of a fire or smoke detecting or other alarm device. And I did not see that in Lake Placid. The house number shall be located both at the road and on the dwelling. Exterior doors shall be operational. All passageways to exterior doors shall be clear and unobstructed. Electrical systems shall be in good operating condition. All fireplaces shall comply with applicable laws and regulations. Property must have a minimum of one off-road parking space for every bedroom shown on the floor plan. Maximum occupancy for each short-term rental shall not exceed 2 people per bedroom and 2 people per minimum full-size convertible sleeping accommodation.
What page is that?
This was the, I don't know, just
Oh,
the
that was
page
a-
aren't labeled, that was the Town of Canada.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
I'll
Can you
make
just
sure.
tell me what page it's on? Just
Do you
count the
have that
page?
one?
Yeah, I do.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Thank you.
Alright, I'm gonna go make copies of this. Al, Jerry, both needed a copy. Scott, you
Yes.
need, this is the Town
Are
of Canada.
You
I
have
have that.
You have
Canada?
that one?
I've got candidates right
We
here.
Yeah,
we have it,
okay.
I was able to
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
somehow.
Yeah,
I don't know how I did it, but,
You converted it to PDF and then
yeah,
you printed it.
somehow I was able to print it, yeah.
Okay.
I would like a copy, please, yes.
Yeah, you need a copy, Scott?
Yep.
All right, what do we got here?
We had a bedroom that was 6.5 by, about 8.
Is that your bedroom when you grew up?
No, that's a bedroom that, just became a mechanical room, but it had bunk beds in there. It was grandkids' room. It's little. There was a window, actually 2 windows.
Take note, Mary Ann, it had windows.
That's right.
Noted.
Yeah, that bedroom, that's so many people for a bedroom, it's a tough one because you can have a fairly large bedroom and you fit 4 kids in there without a problem. So, I mean, it's very limiting, I wouldn't wanna go down there, that would be,
We just don't want to turn into a dormitory style arrangement. And, you know, when we have,
no, but at the same time, you know, I mean, it's
you gotta be reasonable, right?
the
You
owner,
gotta be
it's the
reasonable.
owners. Yeah, I don't know how you handle it.
And we're
Yeah.
legislating, we're proposing to legislate for the entire town.
Right,
And your situation is different than most of the rest of the town.
Maybe.
Getting rid of the village. I mean, it's different. You know, most of the rest of the places, there are some multi-dwelling buildings, but most of them,
Or single family?
I'm thinking, are single-family units. That said, you know, our dread, and we won't do it again as landlords or as renters, not doing family reunions, for example. unless we really know the family.
Sure.
Cause a family reunion brings in who knows who.
Exactly.
And
And a
it
big
can-
crowd,
And it can
potentially.
easily get, huge.
You know, there's always the exception to the rule, and people who are gonna abuse what they shouldn't. But if like, for example, when we had that one, I think it's like 1,000 square feet, the whole thing. And the people who were renting it had 8 people,
Thanks.
but there's really
An
2 full
extra
bedrooms
one.
in there. One was the closet thing, but there's 8 people there, and then they brought in an additional 8 people. And so now you're talking about cars everywhere, dormitory style thing, and it turned into a big party. But they're charging, $250 a night. And a normal family with kids, that's a pretty steep, that's a tight thing to have to pay for. So you bring in your friends, your family, and everybody can afford it now. But then you have all these people.
Right.
And then when the owners found out that many people were there, they're like, our septic can't handle that, we'll call them and tell them to stop. And that didn't happen every week, but you have to understand
It
the
happens,
potential,
yeah.
it's gonna happen. And there's gotta be some kind of limit set for how many people, whatever, or is it people per square foot versus, how many bedrooms?
Or some combination, yeah, 'cause I have a house that has large bedrooms and it has, what do you call it? I get my bed sizes mixed up, it's not it'd be like a double bed,
queen.
and a trundle that comes out, so the kids can
Sure,
go in
sure.
there,
Yeah.
It's big, there's plenty of room and that,
Yeah,
but it's one bedroom.
yeah,
So,
right.
I mean,
So, but you
it
have
really
to
has a
figure out,
big negative impact,
yeah,
in that case, and it depends on where it is. If you're in the village and you got houses here, or in my case, it's, on acres, and there's nobody
Yeah,
around.
right,
So it wouldn't
right.
bother anybody.
right.
So it
Right.
depends on the circumstances and
Yeah.
that, and that's where I always go back to, and this is the hard one, is that you have to have responsible management. And that's the key to having the problems. So I have, you get a holiday, everybody's there, like 4th of July.
Yes,
Everybody's there and everybody has a guest,
Right,
right?
right,
And
right.
the people who live, it's never a problem, but their guests don't know. And
right,
the kids go out and they go and have a good time.
yeah.
But I don't want some kid fishing, and I got $15,000 in canvas on a boat. I don't want them putting a hook through it.
You
And they get
betcha.
scared and they cut it, or I've had the
You
time where
betcha.
it gets in a line
And
and
then
you
you
get
go
scared
grab
and
the
cut it
line.
and leave it, and you pick up your line, you get the hook
Yeah,
in your hand.
yeah, we've had
So
that,
it takes
yeah.
active management like that
Right.
all the time, and that's a difficult thing if you only have, if there are a couple places are all spread out, it's difficult to manage that, especially in the summertime and vacation environment where you have, like heifers let out of the barn in the spring, they get kind of crazy. They're not bad, it's just, they get active, it's a challenge, and it takes active management done in the right way.
Well, relative to that, if you look on Airbnb, VRBOs, and those types of sites, it actually will indicate we have 3 bedrooms, and it'll indicate 2 people per bedroom, so that's actually been a standard that the rental advertising
Yeah,
people
yeah.
have actually used versus square feet.
Right.
So it's kind of following what they're actually doing.
But you can't put everybody in the same box, because those that have the accommodations to be able to.
You can, you can't, but you
Yeah.
gotta regulate it somehow.
Right.
It's gotta be regulated
Well,
somehow.
it's gotta be something that can adapt a little bit.
Yeah.
Because,
Well, you know what, if there's a complaint and you're in violation, then you're gonna get jammed up. If there's no complaints, then
Right.
you're not gonna get jammed up.
yeah.
You know, what if we do this thing and there's complaints and problems down the road, you would
Well, if it's an
you
ordinance,
adapt
you
it,
don't,
you move, you change it a little bit to
Right.
accommodate that.
well, it's not
I
easy
don't
to
think you
change
have
an
to-
ordinance, it takes a lot of work and a lot of time, you gotta do the process. So if you have something that's an adept, for instance, we have contracts, leases, and they're very, very,
They're very,
restrictive. I mean, I wouldn't sign one, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But we have a set of rules that are attached to it, and they're fluid, and we can change them whenever we want,
yeah.
as need be. So, you never have to say anything
but
too much
you
about
hit the
pets, but then
nail
you
on
gotta
the
say,
head.
okay, you got certain types you can't have, but also you allow for individual exceptions
Right,
to certain rules at different times, so.
because you're a good manager.
Right, but what I'm saying is something has to be, I personally wouldn't want, if I have a property that's capable of holding X number of people, which isn't gonna impact anybody else, I wouldn't wanna be restricted by this. I mean, it's
Right, but
too
if
tight. So
you look at this, then would your property not fit into this, I mean, I think.
Well, the 2 people per bedroom, it would.
Well, this is 2 people plus 2 additional, so like.
Per
for
bedroom?
example- No, just as
Well,
plus
we're-
2 additional, so like, for
I'm
example,
lost.
my house, I have 3 bedrooms, but down in the basement, I have like a Murphy bed that pulls out, so I can sleep 2 down there. So that would be, for a 3-bedroom house, then that would be 6 plus the 2 downstairs, that would be 8.
Oh, I see.
And it's saying plus you could add another 2. So that would be 10 people, and I don't, you know, to me, like, for my house, that would be reasonable, so.
Well, I mean, I
mean,
don't have
you're
a
not-
place, I don't have a place in rental, but it would hold 14 people very comfortably, you know, and as 4 bedrooms. It has 2 master bedrooms, you know, with all of 3 bathrooms, you know, and 2 smaller bedrooms, but they're set up, they're here, plus a 1,700 foot
True,
square
and I
foot
get that,
rec
but
room alone.
we cannot make suggestions to town for every possible contingency. There's gotta be, you have your outliers, that there's not enough room, I have too much room, and then you've got your bell curve and what's in the middle, and what would be reasonable to apply, and
Right,
then.
but you're capping, you're, without some way of accommodating those that could, how do I express it? would-
Okay, I
would
got an
qualify
idea.
for an
I got it.
exception.
So in the application, if you have something like that, could you make an addendum and a request for accommodation for, this is what I've got and this is why, in the application? So it gives you an opportunity to fill up your house to the amount that you would want, within reason, and then ask for an accommodation, say, this is what your rules are, 2 per bedroom plus 2, but my house is 5,000 square feet, I'm asking, can I have an additional 4 people? And then it's a yes or a no. And so, but you have an
Well,
So you're applying
avenue.
for
Who's gonna make that
variance.
decision?
You're applying for a variance because you have the
Well, you go back to
capability.
the thing where you gotta go through the zoning board or whatever, I mean.
Right.
I'm just trying to think of
So
a way
wait,
that
Are
there's,
you saying that you can fit 14 people in your house because that's the amount of sleeping?
No, square feet.
You know, beds
well, it's not
or
just square, it's
sofas
just not square feet, but I mean, like I said, you can have 2 bedrooms, we could have 4 children in each, and then, well, 14, you know, over 10 people is probably pushing it, I mean, that's a lot of people for a 4-bedroom home. But there are circumstances where you could have,
Well, that would be within the guidelines.
Yeah,
8,
'cause we're
8
saying
plus
10,
2.
we're saying 10 is,
Yeah,
would be allowed.
Right, well,
in a
it's,
4-bedroom.
and going to the town of Canada, they say, 2 per bedroom, plus an additional 2 per full-size convertible sleeping accommodation
Accommodation
furniture.
furniture.
So let's say in a family room or in a basement or something, you have a futon or you have a Murphy bed, or, so that's another 2 people per furniture.
Above
So you
and
have
beyond.
10
So,
and so if you put in 2 convertibles in a house, then,
if you have 2 full, if you, you know,
Yeah.
per full size, so that's what I'm just trying to say, okay, would your house then not fit into?
well, it's hard to say for my house, 'cause
And-
I don't have a place that's in rental, I'm just using that as an example, because I know what I have there, the sizes and how it is. But other people have to have large bedrooms, big enough to accommodate.
I think for our
So,
purposes, number
anyway.
10 is appropriate.
Yeah, I think it
What
is
you
too.
just read.
yeah.
I think the 2
yeah,
people
it's
per
reasonable.
bedroom has been a standard in everything that we've read.
Yeah, I
And
If you
agree.
wanna
plus 2 is
add-
gratuity.
And plus 2 is,
Yeah.
you're right.
Plus 2 per, you know, if you have a futon
Right,
or
right.
a,
That would be in addition to that? That's a lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
or a sofa
Yeah.
bed, or, you know,
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
you know, that pulls out, or,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think that's.
Well, that allows the flexibility,
That
then, we've
allows
done it that way
flexibility,
then,
yeah.
okay.
I mean, our rental next door to us, they have 1 large bedroom that I believe they have 2 queen size, it's either 2 fulls or 2 queen size beds in there, plus a twin bunk. So you're talking about sleeping 6 people in 1 bedroom, which you could do if, you know, it falls under the 2 per bedroom plus 2 per sleeping apparatus.
Yeah.
They're not in the right.
Well, first of all, that's a different document.
I know.
From North Elva, right?
What's the other one?
Okay.
Yeah, that is, yeah, that works.
Mhm.
Just safe to see if somebody that's in a different situation be limited to the point here.
Okay, so that's page 3. Number 10,
Number 10.
maximum occupancy. Got it, okay. So far I've got for property requirements, parking,
Mm-hmm.
smoke detector, CO detectors, et cetera, in compliance with New York State Fire Prevention, house number on the house, visible, and then maximum occupancy.
I'm sorry, Jerry, did you say off-street parking in there?
Parking was first,
Okay, all
correct?
right, thank
Of the
you, sorry.
off-street parking, yes.
We've got smoke detectors and CO2 detectors, fire extinguishers.
We didn't mention fire extinguishers yet, right?
No,
Okay.
no, but I can include that, there's usually one required in the kitchen, if that's what it says.
In Lake Placid, it also says with one functioning fire extinguisher, in each room with an open flame source.
Open flame source, I like
No,
that.
that makes sense.
Now, here's the question for everybody. What if an outdoor fire pit is on the premises? Do we want to say there needs to be a fire extinguisher readily available for an outdoor fire pit?
No, it's gotta be a water hose. You wouldn't use a fire extinguisher on it, most of them are too small to put out a outdoor fire. So I don't think we need to address it.
So if someone...
Campfires are allowed,
Mm-hmm.
even during burn season, if it's in a campfire at a house. So that, I'm not sure we even need to go there. That gets pretty complicated. I would leave it.
They're all over the place.
Scott?
Yeah, leave it.
Yeah.
He says leave it.
I agree.
Okay.
Gonna go.
Just as a thought.
I'm glad you have a good sense of humor after the season.
It's always always something you don't think of that can have a
Devil's in
really.
the details.
Okay, so I'm
So I
gonna
do
bring
myself, I
up,
always play devil advocate, so.
I'm gonna bring up the fact that it's almost 8:30, which is our supposed stopping time. So what do we wanna do?
Yep, I think we're at a good place.
I got work to do.
Doing a great job.
Yes,
Can you forward me that candidate, or where would I find that?
Didn't Brent forward this to us?
I mean, is this the candidate?
Yeah.
If
Oh, it
wherever
does say
you're,
candidate, never mind.
Yeah, that's what
I was reading something else in there and I didn't realize.
Brent had sent that to us a while ago.
Did anybody receive that webinar, video
No.
yet?
No.
Okay,
Nope.
all right, I think he's still working on that, trying to get that for us.
I actually went on a New York State website, and found the webinar site. And it did talk about a number of different webinars, but I couldn't access them. So there is a New York State site that has those. But I just couldn't open them up. So Brent must be able to, I guess they just don't
For the
release
township or something, yeah.
Yeah,
digital copies of them.
Right.
Somebody makes money off them, I think.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, sure, follow the money.
Exactly.
Something on the top of my head, I'm thinking about here, in this definition here, where it,
Where are you?
well, back in the beginning where it says definitions.
Which particular,
Oh, I'm sorry, what,
Short-term rental?
short-term rental.
Okay.
Up there.
Oh, yep.
Just something to think about for next meeting, maybe. Where is it? So it excludes timeshare hotels, bed and breakfast establishments, et cetera. But in our area, we also have people that have cottages, you know, and I'm not sure whether they treat them as formal businesses, or whether they just, at least and some are, like our neighbors at Pinehurst there, they have cottages, they're all,
Yes, they do.
you know,
Yes,
but they're
yes,
cottages, plus they have a motel.
yes, that's
Hotel,
right,
so
yes,
they're
yes,
different. So
yes.
I'm thinking that since they are a business,
Commercial business.
commercial business there, they really don't fall under a short-term rental, even though it's the same thing, they're renting these for a few days, a few weeks.
On a
at a
short-term
time.
rental basis.
Right, but they're.
But it's under the
Right,
umbrella
but it's
of the
under the
hotel.
umbrella of the
Would it be, that's why I'm
hotel.
trying to, it doesn't address that, and I didn't know how that would,
I look at it as under the umbrella of the
Right.
business.
but I didn't know if it needed to
And-
be clarified that in here or not.
I
Not yet.
wouldn't think so.
'Cause well, there are
But-
mobile home parks where the owners have a variety of places that they lease them by the week, so as cottages, in addition to the seasonal rentals. We don't, because they don't, the short term and the owners don't mix. But they do that, so where do they fall under, you know? So they would have usually they have multiple health department permits. One for the seasonal mobile home, and even though there's mobile homes in between the seasonal mobile homes, but they're rented on a short-term basis.
Right.
You know, they're all being serviced by the same sewage system, they're all being served by the same water system, the power, and
Right.
that, but they have multiple
But they're all
permits in there.
separate buildings.
Yeah, in this case,
They're
they're
all
mobile homes and there's some
separate.
cottages too. So, you know, I mean, I just didn't know if it needed to be thought of a little bit and
bit.
clarified in there.
Certainly think about it.
Because if it's a business where you have multiple places on one piece of property.
Right, it's owned by.
And it has a, you know, DBA or,
Right.
you know, and that's different than you renting out individual
Right.
pieces of property
Right.
that you have around.
Right, right.
You know, because you have a cohesive environment where you have on-site
correct.
management.
I
The health department requires us to have 24/7 management there.
Right,
I think
Yeah.
that's the key right there, where there's on-site management, because the reason why I say that
Yes,
is
I read
You're
that,
right.
yes.
That's
because
good.
you can form a DBA or you can form an LLC to
Yep.
incorporate any multitude of properties. I
Right.
mean, my rentals are under a property, you know, are under an LLC. But I think that's the key, if there's
the
an
key.
on-site property
That's an excellent point,
management.
yeah. And that
That's excluded.
makes a distinction between as a business
As a
versus.
professional business.
As a, yeah, I don't know how you.
Agreed.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we should draw something,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And that gives them relief from having the burden of all
Right.
of this, because
Yes.
that would be burdensome.
I agree with that 100%.
Somehow, if it's like a multi-unit, business with on-site property management, it's excluded.
Right, right.
And that's why a bed and breakfast is
Considered a
excluded.
business because it's
Yeah,
on-site
on-site.
management.
But
Right.
it's also excluded because of on-site.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right, right. Excluded as an NCR.
Okay.
You guys have deep pockets, please put some cookies in your pockets, take them home. Kids, grandkids,
See this?
partner with a.
I nibbled.
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
That was yours, but I mean,
We
we
had
had
to
to
reverse
refer to it, so.
Thanksgiving, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Oh, my.
Right.
All right, and our
Turkey
next
out.
meeting now is
December.
December 13th, right?
Correct.
Are we back to the Thursday?
Nope, that's a Tuesday.
Then January 12th and 26th?
Then we were back to, yes, January 12th and 22nd.
Okay, got it.
Great.
Very good.
I got my homework, see what I can come up with.
We need to turn stuff off here, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. We all know that we're being
So,
recorded,
Um,
right?
I can turn the.
You did not know that.
Oops.